Alright, on this, the most holy of sci-fi nerd days, May the 4th. Though it'll probably be May the 5th before I post it. We'll see. We'll see. Um, I am now going to keep a promise to somebody. I said I was going to record this today, and so I shall. The real trick to it all is that we are covering at least the broadest overview I have of my theory, my game theory. See, I believe that when Dragon Age originally came out, and I believe it stayed true probably through all of Mass Effect 3, based on my own evidence that I found, that the original intention was that, again, who knows if it was intentional when Dragon Age Origins came out, but it was at least canon when Dragon Age 2 was out, that Mass Effect is a prequel to Dragon Age. This takes a bit to start with, so let's go off the original starting point, which is Mass Effect. Now, if you've played through the Mass Effect series, you're aware of the multiple DLCs that have expanded the lore, which is intentional and works out well for our case. But the original idea in all of this, when it all started with the Reapers, is that these highly advanced mind-manipulating squids made artificial life, which then became aware and went, the only way artificial life and organic life can coexist is if a fusion or a hybrid is made. And thus was born the Reapers, who then proceeded to hunt down all organic life to either convert it to hybrid life or to straight up, kill it. You either become a part of the Reaper hive mind because you have something to offer, or you're dead. But they didn't want to wipe out all life. They wanted life to grow, evolve, and then become sublimated into the Reaper hive mind. And this process has we have not been told how many times it has happened, but it has apparently happened more than one time. And we have seen in flashbacks via Javik's whole thing that while Reapers are very highly advanced, very dangerous things, well beyond what any individual ship could take down on their own, they are not immortal. We even see this in Mass Effect 2, where there is a dead Reaper. Its core is still alive, and to quote one of the journal entries there, dead gods can still dream. So they still have an indoctrination effect. Even being around any amount of Reaper tech that isn't directly connected to a Reaper can lead to indoctrination. So we have that going for us. And so what we have here is this idea that a dead Reaper... There are dead Reapers, and dead Reapers can still influence the organic life around them. Now we've started with that general premise. We're now going to go for the most obvious, played out part of the plot that everybody debates over. The series that establishes... Mass Effect establishes this substance called Element Zero. They do not name it beyond that, but it's referred to Element Zero based on its place on the periodic table of elements because it has zero mass, as far as anybody's aware. Thus, the Mass Effect. It's incredibly toxic if physically touched, and in high concentrations is lethal to the body. But the higher concentrations you have in your body, the easier it is for you to generate and manipulate Mass Effect fields. The race most associated with ease of use with it is the Asari, who are a monogender species that have a female humanoid appearance. These are all factors that will come into the overall storytelling I have here. So we have that going for it, but it's a blue glowing substance that allows you to manipulate the world around you, including but not limited to, when used through technology, freezing of things, electrocuting things, and setting things on fire. And yes, that is what it is canonically doing through your Omni tool. Your Omni tool is manipulating Element Zero to cryogenically freeze things and to set things on fire and to short circuit things. It's actually canonical that that's what the Omni tool is doing it through the manipulation of Element Zero, because it's saturated every bit of technology in the Mass Effect universe. So that's the thing. We also see it. The proficient biotic adepts, which are biotics, are people who are able to channel element zero through their own body to accomplish some amazing feats, including but not limited to a short distance mass relay, like mass jumps, which in this case which usually charges. They can create gravity wells, and they can just hit you with raw pushing power. But this is all done through implants in their body, or in the case of the Asari, I think it's inherent to their biology. But there's implants put into the body that allow the channeling of element zero to achieve these effects. And all societies in every cycle of the Reaper harvest have all discovered a place called the Citadel, which is intentional. All the mass relays, everything that around, it's all designed to discover this long, old, ancient space station that has more than enough space for everybody, that will become a hub of political influence, so that way the Reapers can use it to jump right in, cut the head off, and kill the stragglers. The only reason in Mass Effect 1 that anybody even had a chance to fight back this time, and it's canonical about this, is that Shepard stopped the Citadel from being used to bring the rest of the Reapers in. That's it. If Shepard had failed, we would not have the Mass Effect series. Period. Full stop. Because the Reapers would have come in, killed everybody, and it would have reset. And that is literally how they've done it multiple times. It is canonical. It's not in question. So we have that going for us, right? And what we see with the Reapers is occasionally they'll use things like spires, which allow them to impale dead beings and convert them into things called husks, which are mindless Reaper organic life hybrids. They have it's implied they have other methods of converting, but it's really complicated. Even in the case of the human Reaper at the end of Mass Effect 2, they had the collectors turning people into smoothies and then reforging it. Their technology is intentionally beyond normal human understanding. But the general idea is that the Reapers, if you look at the circuitry, you look at how they act, they are a further progression of that. They are artificial life, corrupting organic life with artificial circuits, and their manipulation of element zero allows them to, through their manipulation of element zero, they're able to, take advantage, to control these things through a hive mind of sorts. And they're even referred to as old gods by the Geth. And so they're revered as gods by the Geth. So the general idea is that these beings are absorbed into the Reaper mind, and because all of these Reapers are originally based off the mind-manipulating squid things, and the process is horrific and they're usually converting dead bodies, most beings don't survive that process. They become just an extension of the Reapers. That's the other thing about indoctrination, is it slowly converts you into an agent of the Reapers, and you lose aspects of yourself that define you as a person. All you can think of is how you can better serve the Reapers. So that's an angle to that. You are effectively not just brainwashed, but converted into an extension of the will of the Reapers. I bring all of this up because, again, we're discussing the idea that Dragon Age is a sequel series to Mass Effect. And you may say, well, if that's true, where's all the spacefaring species? Simple, the ending of Mass Effect 3 happened. It's canonical that in order to defeat the Reapers completely, and we're not doing the extended cut ending, because the extended cut ending, I feel... Let me make my case as to why we're ignoring the extended cut ending. We're only 10 minutes in, and I'm going to have to snip that for a reason. It is my impression that the reason the original ending of Mass Effect 3 sucked is they were trying to leave the door open to the intended sequel into Dragon Age. Because you're right, if the spacefaring species still had their ships and everything, what are the odds that it's going to go well, right? They're going to find this place and it's going to be a whole fricked up everything, right? But also, if you do the one... I have a secondary reason. And it's because if you really look at it, right? In Mass Effect, your Paragon endings are shaded blue, and anything that isn't a Paragon ending has a different color, but the Renegade ending, the one that's considered needless and aggressive and destructive for no apparent reason, is always coded as red, also known as the asshole option. And that's intentional. And you may say, well, what do you mean? Of course it's intentional. It's color theory. No, I mean destroying the Reapers being colored as the renegade asshole thing is intentional. Even though it's been the goal, the plan, the objective, the obsession of Shepard for 3 whole games is to defeat and destroy the Reapers. Suddenly, it's being painted as the asshole thing to do. Why would you just up and kill them? You are better. You can save us. You can take us over and save everybody else. Or if you're really good, you can fuse all life, organic and technological, together. Like the Reapers were doing. Oh, wait. Yeah. Turns out that if you take the Paragon ending of Mass Effect 3, you're making the same mistake as the Elusive Man. You seem to be under the impression that you are incorruptible. That somehow you are the exception. And even if Shepard's will overwrites it for a time, and the Reapers go back into dark space and everything's fine, the Reapers will return. And now they have absorbed the mind of the one person who was able to stop them. You have become a Reaper. Not just the mind of the Reapers, not just, you were indoctrinated. No, you literally have become a Reaper, and you are now helping them. You are now, like Sovereign, like Harbinger, you are a Reaper. You are the Shepherd. And it's not subtle. Mass Effect, it can be considered subtle because Mass Effect 3 is so long and so emotionally rich from your past playthroughs that it can get buried very easily. But Mass Effect 3 does everything in its power to let you know that not only was Shepard brought back to life using Reaper technology, but even the Elusive Man knew that protecting Shepard's will and separation, like letting Shepard think for themselves and keeping them with free will, was important for reasons he couldn't figure out, and he had already been indoctrinated at that point. Shepard is the human Reaper that the Reapers are trying to make. They wanted to make some kind of equivalent with a giant Reaper, but it wasn't, we're going to make a human Reaper and then that's going to help us. I am 1,000% sure that either that was the intended shell they were going to implant the finished indoctrinated Shepard into after they went, you have something to provide the Reapers, or it was their attempt to create what Shepard is in their eyes. That was their attempt to recreate what Shepard is. Because Shepard was brought back from the dead with Reaper technology. The Reapers are aware of Shepard, and can find them relatively easily, it seems. And if you look at your dreams in Mass Effect 3, that is exactly how the dreams in Mass Effect 2 when you're on the Dead Reaper are described. Inky black shadows, blending memories, confusion spread about that because hallucinations on top of that. Indoctrination is infamous for hallucinations. And so, yes, Shepard is undergoing indoctrination. The only correct answer is to destroy the Reapers. Any other answer either makes all current life into Reapers or hands the Reapers their newest, most deadliest weapon. And this leads further into this. Because think about the dreams that Shepard has. Now, think about the Fade from Dragon Age. Those of you that don't know Dragon Age, the Fade is a realm of dreams and memories where people can collectively dream together, and it is home to a bunch of demons and a bunch of shenanigans, right? Supposedly. But you'll see people who aren't there. You'll see inky shadows. You'll see... It's already starting to feel familiar? Yes, and sometimes when you come out of the Fade, you can end up in a body that isn't yours. It's happened. In fact, that's how demons get in, is they kind of just upload their consciousness to a different body connected through the Fade. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get to that in a moment. But if you compare Shepard's dreams to the way the Fade works, it's like a more coherent, less damaged version of the Fade, and I mean that intentionally. So, canonical ending. Shepard destroys all technology. Because no, it's not just all artificial life. It is canonical that that wave will wipe out all technology. All of the high-end tech that we've come to know, it blows up every Mass Effect relay. It fries the entire Citadel. It destroys the Normandy circuits completely. It's not just ED dead, it's the whole ship is fried. And in every ending, they crash on a planet. Funny how that works, isn't it? So, we have all technology completely fried. We have people with some understanding of Element Zero, because you can't take away their knowledge. But you have all of these various races trying to, because you had, and they can't even like show you all the races, right? But theoretically, best possible Shepard that destroys the Reapers has a little bit of everybody at Earth to help protect the Citadel before it goes off. And therefore, they have to all mass jump out through the same mass relay. And I don't know for sure if I want to put my finger on this, right? But we're going to do a thing here. See, it's implied in the ending of the destruction ending, in fact, every ending, but that you can mass jump away from that relay, but the destruction can still catch up to you mid-mass jump. And so the beings that escaped Earth, which, by the way, they again only had the one Mass Effect relay to escape through, it's entirely possible that wave caught up to all of them and damaged all of their ships. So whether they all stopped at the same spot or whether they were scattered to the four winds, because space is very big. In fact, we even have that little conversation in Mass Effect 2. That once something starts moving, unless it's acted on by an outside object, it keeps moving. And so all these ships, knocked aside by the destruction of the mass relays, scattered to the four winds. A decent portion of them are probably going to land in the same spot because they're all headed the same way, but there is no guarantees. But let's say a decent assortment land on the same planet than the Normandy did. It could, and this is my personal theory versus what I have evidence for, are two separate things. My personal theory is that it's some planet along that way. It doesn't have to have been a successful Mass Effect jump. So it's neither here nor there. But in the system, the only system that the mass relay from Sol can reach, in that system there's a planet called Loki, which they have people already on the planet of Loki. There's already human settlements on the planet Loki. That's actually already established. So they're fighting Reapers on it, but they're not doing too hot. And so what you run into, in the case of that, is you have all of these people fighting Reapers on the planet Loki. And you go, why the planet Loki in particular? Well, in Dragon Age, there are tunnels even deeper than the dwarves themselves have made. The dwarves, from everything I can tell in Dragon Age, are the native population of the planet. They are the sentient race that seems to be the one that has been there the longest. And they're the ones that they live deep under the earth. And it's even said in one of the Mass Effect things that on planet Loki, they aren't sensing anything. But if there was anything, the Reapers have better sensors than the Reapers would know. I posit to you that since we know Reapers have died before, and we know that just because they've died doesn't mean they don't influence living things, that the dwarves, who have been fighting the Darkspawn for longer than time immemorial, as far as I'm aware, they have a whole culture built around it. There's a dead Reaper deep, deep in the planet. That would explain the rock wraiths as well, because if you look at the red lyrium and the way the rock wraiths are presented, it looks a lot like assuming direct control over Saren's dead body in Mass Effect 1. And what do we see with lyrium? Bringing it back to what I was talking about before. Lyrium is a highly toxic thing that direct contact with your body will kill you. But you have to, in order to be a mage that uses it, you have to have a body that already has an inherent amount of, like, lyrium in you. That's what, it's lyrium in your blood. And you channel it through your blood, and you have to eat it in controlled ways, because if you don't, you have to make lyrium potions. You can't just snuff raw lyrium, you will die. But if you have lyrium potions, aka diluting it, you can introduce it to your body in specific ways to, recharge the lyrium in your body. Definitely not Ezo. Definitely not that. And what can you do this with? Oh, you can just summon fire and exert force on the earth and freeze things and electrocute things and all kinds of stuff, really. Even forming barriers. Oh, wait. Oh, and then there was a whole class of mage knights that were able to use their lyrium power as though it was physical strength. It's almost like there was a mixed class that did the same thing. Oh, right, vanguards, where they use biotics to enhance their physical capabilities. Yeah. And so what we have is an interesting little dichotomy here of a whole lot of coincidences that all happen to coincide. You may say, what does this have to do with anything? Well, if you look at the lore of the Darkspawn in Dragon Age lore, there was a group called the Tevinter who knew about the Fade and were poking about the Fade, and they wanted power for themselves, so they were exploring the Fade. And if we assume the Fade is the indoctrination dreams of a frickin' dead Reaper, or even that stepping into the Fade, the way we sometimes see here, is just a form of mass jump. Like, because it's not phasing things in and out with Ezo is not hard. Well, correction, it's complicated, but it's possible. It's been done. That's why you can mass jump the way you do. You just need a Mass Effect relay, and you can go in a straight line. It's not a clear path. You are phasing into a different state. That's what the titular Mass Effect is. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. But if the Fade is, for lack of a better explanation, a controlled mass jump in or out of or around or because of a Reaper, that would make a lot of sense. Even the mirrors that are used as gateways seems to me like they're miniature Mass Effect relays. Because I sure as heck remember traveling to the Citadel through solid matter through a replica of the frickin' Mass Effect relay in the very first game. Because the statue on the Citadel is a Mass Effect relay. And the way it is described is that, hey, as long as you have two Mass Effect relays that are properly aimed at each other and have the right information, you can jump through all matter between point A and point B in a whole separate slipstream of life, right? That's even when you're doing the charge effect as the Vanguard. You can go through cover because you are not yourself. You are in a different state of matter. You are transporting from point A to point B. And that's it. The fact that you can do it with the Vanguard means you do not need a mass relay. Mass relays are just more efficient and safer over longer distances. Probably because they do half the calculations for you. Anyway, the Tevinter discover this the Golden Palace. It's a citadel of light in the middle of the Fade. I even think it's called the Black Citadel later, but we'll get into that because we're getting there. I'll look that up in the background while I'm double checking myself here. Yes, the Black City. once known as the Golden City. See, I had to reread. I'm rereading right here. The former seat of the Maker or the realm of the old gods, depending on the religious perspective. Old gods. It's funny. It's almost like the Geth called them that. Anyway. So the Tevinter discover the Golden City. They go inside and they see that the throne is empty. And that's when everything pops off and the Darkspawn curse is released. And the Tevinter are the first to be corrupted with it. My sincere theory as to this is that they were accessing the Citadel through the Reaper's memory, through the indoctrination. They were indoctrinated. They were deep enough in the Fade where they were like connected to the Reaper network. That'll be a part of my theory in a hot minute. But they were deep enough into the Reaper network where they could access the Citadel. And the Reaper's mind they were going through tried accessing the Citadel and then realized that the hologram that runs the Reapers, which, yes, that is a separate character in Mass Effect lore, do not ask me why, was gone because everything got exploded. And you may say, well, how did he get away? Simple. The Reaper died many, 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 many times ago and is buried deep under the planet. There is no guarantee that it would have reached them down there. In fact, I highly doubt it would have. But cut off from all mass relays and there's no network with which to coordinate everything, I imagine. And there's two different ways to view this. Either, as the Reapers were getting exploded, they looked for any kind of way to connect to each other and managed to find the dead Reapers and uploaded themselves there and got damaged in the process, which is one way to do it, and it could be some of them. Or, upon being woken up, the dead Reapers all over the whole galaxy kind of reached out, found each other, and tried to figure out what the hell happened. Because they had been woken up, but they were still dead. Like, just because the Reaper is awake doesn't mean its body is alive, because it's a part of a hive network. As long as the body can sustain its processing power, it doesn't matter if it can move the body. So you have that going for it, right? And, of course, by the time of Dragon Age, we're talking centuries, maybe even thousands of years after Mass Effect 1. Doesn't matter how far, just matters that it is. But they wake up and the Darkspawn threat, kicks off proper. And that's when you have your first Archfiend. Now, Archfiends take over the body of a dragon that is drawn to it, that's summoned by the frickin' Archfiend itself. And then once a dragon and an Archfiend have somehow connected, it becomes the proper Archfiend and leads a Blight. That is, in Dragon Age lore, how it goes. Now, to me, this sounds like a Reaper discovered a very powerful organic being that was susceptible to indoctrination, summoned it, and then assumed direct control of its new vessel. And they would have to do that due to the damage done to the body. They can't operate as well as they used to because they're technically dead. And having been woken up by the Tevinter, it's trying to fulfill its purpose, fusing organic life and technological life. But it's damaged, and it doesn't have easy access to spires, so what can it do? Well, what it can do is it can indoctrinate and convert one big life form with lots of blood, and use blood transfusions as a means of corruption. As a means to do the conversion, it gives blood transfusions from the converted life form to other life forms. Herlocks are corrupted humans. Genlocks are corrupted dwarves. Which, by the way, that's a separate thing I want to talk about. But it's labeled that way intentionally. Ogres are very clearly, and anybody who wants to argue with me can, ogres are very clearly corrupted Kunari. If you compare them one-to-one, it's not even a question. Maybe not whatever Sten was in Dragon Age 1, but definitely what they ended up becoming by Dragon Age 2. They are. I think that change was intentional to make it more obvious. So you have Herlocks, which are probably humans and elves that have been corrupt. I don't know for sure on the elf thing. That's a I cannot one to one confirm what they become when they're corrupted, but we know they're susceptible to darkspawn corruption due to the Awakening DLC. So we know that elves can be converted into darkspawn. We don't know what for sure what they'd be. I'm guessing Herlocks, but I can't prove it. But that's what we have there. And I want to point something out. Just in passing, just in thought. Tell me, when you see a desire demon from Dragon Age, doesn't it look oddly like some kind of halfway point between a banshee and an Asari? And when you look at the shape of a rage demon, isn't it weird they have a hump on their back? Almost like they're Krogans? And of course, there's the shades, which are the most obvious flashlight head gets ever. Especially their whole, like, they are hollow until given proper purpose. And I think it's weird that, and this one I'm less able to prove, but it lines up too well. Pride demons look a lot like brutes from Mass Effect 3. They even have lightning-based powers similar to how brutes have, like, Saren lightning coming off them. But it's less strong. But Turians are a very proud and arrogant people, and they look like the brutes, so if I were to push it further, that's how I'd push it. And you may say, what are these demons if these are just Reapers? Well, it comes back to what I said before, it's a Reaper hive mind. But now that all the Reapers have been damaged, and there's these beings being woken up through damaged Reaper tech while attached to the Reaper hive mind, it would make sense that with all of the corruption and all the damage done from the destruction wave, some of the minds that may have survived this might have managed to reclaim some measure of themselves within the Reaper hive mind. Not enough to remember their old life, but enough to gain independence because there's nobody in the Citadel controlling it and calling all the shots. So they are still indoctrinated. They still believe themselves to be a part of the Reaper hive mind. But now they're looking for a way out, because they didn't want to be here in the first place. They were converted against their will, and now here they are. And I think that's an interesting idea. Especially when you look at abominations. Because in Dragon Age, what are abominations? Well, when a mage gets too deep into the Fade, and then they make a deal with a demon, the demon is able to take over their body and corrupt it and change it however they please, usually into a really ugly meat sack of a being. Almost like, I think they're called Scions, but the big lumpy, hunky guys in Mass Effects 2. I think they're in 3. No, they're only in 2. I think they're only in 2. Don't quote me, but I'm going to say... No, they're in 3 too. Either way. In Mass Effects 2 and 3, there's things called Scions. They're big, lumpy, and have lots of faces all over them. There's supposed to be more than one being all crammed into one. I can't remember why the Reapers thought that was a good idea, but they are obnoxious and I don't like fighting them. Either way, people who become abominations often look a lot like Scions, just saying. So we have a lot of this going on, right? Where there's a lot of these coincidences that all kind of line up, but also all kind of don't. And then we get to the Grey Wardens. And I want to really explore this for you guys as deeply as I possibly can. Grey Wardens are rendered sterile. They are tainted by darkspawn blood, but resistant to the influence of the darkspawn. They can sense them, they can hear them, but they can't. They will never be able to become a darkspawn. Theoretically, they do not listen. They hear the archdemon's whispers, but they will never. They are in a position where they have withstood the taint, and they will die before they become anything else. Right? It's weird. It's almost like there was another person who had a Reaper tech in them and was resistant to indoctrination and could hear the Reapers and understand them, but was able to withstand their influence and used that connection to the Reapers to help defeat them. I'm just saying. And this is my point. Like, if I pour over every single detail from all of Dragon Age and all of Mass Effect, I can keep doing this. I can keep doing it day and night for ages. The problem is, if I wanted to do it in full to my full satisfaction, I would need to actually get the documentation, because I had my notes. For the longest time, I had my notes. And then I got married, had a kid, dealt with cancer, came back around. Like, those notes are scattered. They are around my stuff, but I'd have to collect them all back up. But we are dealing in the broadest possible scope here of this idea that we have old gods who corrupt others into a part of their hive mind and will not stop at leaving all organic life alone. You cannot reason with them. And if you want more proof that the demons are reapified people coming to their senses but still indoctrinated, look no further than the Architect from Dragon Age Awakening. That was a darkspawn who wanted free from the Archfiends. He gained sentience through consuming the immunity of a Grey Warden, and by doing so was able to reclaim some semblance of a mind of his own. And that lends credence to my demons theory, that the demons are minds from within the Reaper hive mind that have gained some sentience back, now that there's nobody there to call the shots. And it becomes this thing of, like, how far do you want to go before you claim it's an accident? And I will say that the DLC for Inquisition is kind of a shot to the head, in a way, or at least proof that they aren't, if that was their intention once, they're not going to be doing it moving forward. But if you really look at it, Kunari, if you look at the stupid photoshopped but otherwise canonical presentation of what Liara looked like under her helmet back in the first version, not the new legendary version, but the old version, where she's purple-skinned and has little head swoops. And it seems like the Kunari, just saying, Quarians that, thanks to Geth help, were able to boost their immune system long enough to survive, and then had their same rigid Admiralty, rule structure that eventually became the Qun. They had to for survival. They didn't have room for that, and they weren't going to They weren't going to rob people of their free will, because you have to choose to join the Qun. But once you join the Qun, that's it. That's your life now. And I really like that. I really like this interpretation. You may say, well, what happened? Krogans are long-lived and regenerate very well. What happened to them? Well, there's a few different explanations. One of the big ones being, I don't think any landed on this planet. That's all. Maybe one. That's an Easter egg, but I think maybe one. I just haven't seen any life that looks like Krogans having adapted, really. So that's just me going, I just don't think there are any. I just don't. Well, what about the Asari? Same thing. I don't think any landed on this planet. I think this planet had the humans that were already fighting the Reapers on it, and then a few that survived it. And this is why you have things like Orlais, which are clearly French, but aren't limited. They're still culturally diverse in their skin color. So it's like, okay, now we just have an actual just cultural survival. We have people who are hanging on to the mindset of the French, and kind of sticking with their own communities, which would make sense for efficiency, because they all speak French. You would think everybody also speaks English. Oh wait, all the Orlesians also speak English. Then you have Ferelden, which is not just American, but like British, which there's going to be... The Brits will survive space. Space Brits. And I'm sure there is... I am 100% sure that somewhere in Thetis there is a nation that just speaks regular English. like regular American, I should say. America is somewhere in Thetis. But what you have is and even then it's like, okay, so you have mages which are able to use lyrium to access the Fade and to do stuff. Which, if you assume that all life on this planet is being slowly indoctrinated over time by the Reaper and the Earth and through access to the Fade, because everybody except the dwarves has dreams, and those dreams all go to the Fade, it is canonical, that is a thing. Um, if you think of it that way, that everybody's getting slowly indoctrinated, the idea of the Circle is suddenly less crazy. Because if I were to frame it this way, to all Mass Effect fans, and I want you to think about this, if you knew that there was a group of people that were especially susceptible to indoctrination and who could at any point in time become agents of the Reapers, after seeing what was done, after seeing what happened in Mass Effect 1 and seeing various examples of it in Mass Effect 2, and I think even in Mass Effect 3, can you honestly tell me that you wouldn't go, look, you shouldn't have to be killed just because you have potentially been indoctrinated? Because I would say it's a hard choice to decide, because and this isn't like one of those, if you've been indoctrinated, I'm just going to up and shoot you. It's that I've seen what indoctrination does, and death is preferable to life. I would prefer to be killed if I was indoctrinated by a Reaper than to have my body puppeteered like that. And so now I'm like, okay, you have a whole group of people that are more susceptible to indoctrination and becoming agents of the Reapers. And you want me to not keep an eye on them and not make sure there's guards on hand to keep them from acting nuts? Now, take that over centuries, and it becomes this unhealthy situation that's unsustainable because all the information as to why it was put there in the first place is gone. And yes, people who have been indoctrinated by the Reapers would absolutely take the Tevinter mindset of, hey, I'm strong, I can handle this all on my own, and look how powerful my indoctrination makes me. Look at the elusive man. The elusive man is the essence of the Tevinter mindset. He used Reaper tech, thought he was stronger than that, and thought it made him superior to his fellow humans. And what was he? Nothing but another puppet. And so again, it's an odd situation to find yourself in, where when you look at it through this, you're like, I have the benefit of knowing what happened hundreds of years ago in this timeline. I know what risk we face. And if you look at it, and you look at Corypheus was very clearly dead at the end of the DLC in Dragon Age 2. Very clearly dead. I looted his damn corpse. That's how dead he was. And then he jumped into somebody else by assuming direct control, using the fact that they had already been indoctrinated, which you may say that's a bit of a stretch. We haven't seen that. Yes, we have. The Collectors did it all the time. All of them had been indoctrinated. All of their bodies had some kind of Reaper tech in them. And Harbinger was able to freely take control of their bodies at any time and do and all that stuff. It's not even a joke. And you may say, like, well, what about the shifting their whole body thing? Dude, Reaper tech. If you have been corrupted with enough Reaper tech, I am 100% sure the nanites can activate and reshape your body. I've done some crazy crap with Mass Effect fields. I guarantee I've done some crazy things with Mass Effect fields. I would not be surprised if you can just take over somebody's whole body like that. It's the only reason Harbinger doesn't do it is the whole reason he has the Collectors is as puppets. He doesn't want to become them. That would just be silly. Not to mention, I don't think you can take something that small and reshape it into a whole frickin' Reaper. Even Corypheus corrupted a dragon to be his archfiend, could not himself, become a dragon. So it's a whole thing. But what we have is effectively Corypheus recognizing the power vacuum from the destruction of the Citadel, not knowing why, but knowing it's there, and then trying to make himself a Reaper. That's why he has red lyrium sticking in and out of his body everywhere. And you're like, well, what about red lyrium specifically? Why is that? What color was the destructive wave from the ending of Mass Effect 3? Oh, right, it was red. A red Mass Effect field that wiped out all technology. And what color was the lightning that took over Saren's body? Oh, right, red. Red. Huh. So Saren's dead body animated with red Ezo and a red destructive wave going through the cosmos. Whether you view that as Reapers infecting the Ezo somehow or using it as an extension of their fingers, it doesn't matter. Red lyrium is probably the most concentrated version of Ezo. And since Reapers can interact through anything that has Reaper tech, I guarantee that since that wave that destroyed the Reapers was made from Reaper tech, if it somehow influenced or infected the lyrium, it absolutely could be used by a dead Reaper that managed to escape the wave to to spread its influence, to indoctrinate people further. As you can see from the fact that Corypheus can take over anybody who has red lyrium in his body. Red lyrium is just the most efficient form of current Reaper tech. And that's my understanding of it. Anybody who has specific challenges or specific questions, I don't mind elaborating in a follow-up. I was recording this at the request of Sasha on Twitter, because I kind of got into it a little bit on there, and I want to make 100% clear. Nothing anybody says will convince me that that was not the original intention. I know that if there is further sequels to Dragon Age released, that it's going to drift further away. Because the whole creative team behind Mass Effect and Dragon Age has since basically been fired by EA. So I am not expecting this to be continued. But the general impression, every step of the way through every game, whenever I've played both of them, which it is, oh my god, is it the coolest but most draining experience to play all of Mass Effect and then go directly through the Dragon Age series. It is draining, and it is satisfying. It is like watching the extended cuts of Lord of the Rings back to back. It is that kind of satisfying and draining. But these are just the general... This is just the general framework that I use all the time. I thought it was going to be longer. I really felt like it was going to be 5 hours worth, because when I last tried, I did have like 3 hours of recording, and I didn't think I had made any progress like I wanted to. But I think that's the benefit of having had years to kind of streamline it for easier consumption. To really process it and boil it down to just the most compelling aspects of it. Just really the parts that make it undeniable. And I want people to show up in the comments and provide their counterpoints to see if I'm wrong. Because I'm sure that people are going to sit here and tell me how wrong I am. But I promise you that for most of these, if I don't have the citation immediately off the top of my head, I will be able to sift through somebody's wiki somewhere for what I'm looking for. Or cite it off, or paraphrase it offhand, and you can go find it. Hopefully I can just find the citation myself, though. It's more satisfying that way. And no, I don't care if the developers have denied that they're connected. I honestly do not care. And you may say, well, isn't that important? Not really. I mean, as a writer, let me make clear, if I say two things aren't connected and that they're not, they're just very similar to one another, I personally don't care if you have a headcanon that they're connected anyway. If I did such a poor job of dividing them that you can make them fuse together, then that's fine. And you know what's even further with that? Within Perpetua, because everything's an infinite timeline, I actually can't even dispute you, because, well, my versions might not be connected to each other, and I know that as a creator. In the broad scope of infinity, there is a version of events where the two are connected. Doesn't matter how disparate, doesn't matter how desperate they are. There is probably a form in infinity where they've connected and overlapped, so... But that's neither here nor there. Honestly, I think what this is just the concentrated version. I had more to this, I swear. I really do feel like I had more. But I think it's the years and years and years of this living rent-free in my head that's helped me boil it down to just these points. Which is the Fade seems a lot like the dreams you get while indoctrination and behaves a lot like it. The way archdemons behave and the way they spread the blight and operate with the darkspawn, that seems very similar to the Reapers. The Darkspawn themselves not being able to organize themselves or anything like that without an Archfiend, that seems like the Husks. It's all these things like that. It's not just the lyrium. It's not, oh, there was a Krogan head mounted in Inquisition. I'm like, yeah, but a Krogan head mounted on a wall could easily just be an Easter egg, right? Even if you want to take it as canon, it just means they're in the same. It means they're in the same universe. That's it. Could mean anything. But when you pair it with every single other thing that's going on, it becomes this weird zone of, because I can even go this the wolf, the wolf queen, the white wolf that takes over for the werewolves, right? Anybody notice how plants are there? Almost like it's some kind of offspring of the Thorian or some similar species of living creature, and not necessarily inherently something from the Fade. Or maybe it's just, he implanted the heart of this alien into a wolf, and then it became the wolf. Just a thought. I mean, like, that's just off the head. I hadn't even thought too hard about that until this exact moment. But there's too many things that are... Oh, they're just too damn close. And it's like, I can understand why people would want to call bullcrap, right? For countless reasons. In fact, I even want to go into the thing. Think about the ending where Shepard refuses to make a choice. Everything dies, and Liara's box is on. Oh, it's an oddly grassy planet with a temperate climate. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up on one thing though. I say the planet Loki because it's in lore of Mass Effect that it has pre-existing subterranean tunnels, and that people can't properly scan it that deep. And the Reapers aren't going to likely tell you if there's a dead Reaper under there, so while they may know, they're not going to do it. They're not going to attack it, and they're not going to tell you. So clearly that's... because that's more Reaper tech that you can fiddle with, and it's like, yeah. So I don't know for sure if it's Loki. The fact that it's named Loki is probably what's psyching me out, because Loki is a trickster god in Norse mythology. And so it feels like it's a joke at my expense, ages before I ever found it, by naming the one planet that's in universe for sure, that's the most likely culprit to be the planet. And you say, oh, why Loki in particular? Isn't it like half ice? It's like, yeah. Yes, it is. It is half ice. And what is in Dragon Age Inquisition but the frozen wastes? So if we're assuming over centuries, because climates shift, of course, and you're going to have people who have some understanding with access to plenty of Ezo, because this planet is rich in Ezo, apparently, probably post Mass Effect 3 ending because of all the, explosions and planet reactors and all that stuff, like all the ship reactors. Can you imagine? Anyway. So with all the dead and exploded technology, Ezo saturating the planet is not unlikely. But you have all these people that know how to use Ezo still, with scraps of technology that they're going to, after some mining for things, they're going to have to be able to go there, and they already have some terraforming on these planets. Otherwise, they couldn't be fighting on here. The atmosphere on the surface at the time of Mass Effect is inhospitable, but that's centuries, we are at minimum centuries later, with people who might have the technology to make safe environments for themselves. So it's one of those situations where you can use scraps to, with the Ezo and everything like that, make something that can terraform at least a little. Not to mention the massive environmental change that would be caused from multiple different ships crashing into the planet. It's there is no, like, that is a likely culprit, right? That Planet Loki is it, and then after everything crashed on it, the old tunnels in the northern section that are talked about in Mass Effect get buried, go underneath. Even the dwarves aren't aware of that anymore. Because that's literally in Dragon Age 2, they say these, and that's a loose end in Dragon Age 2. There's these tunnels beneath old dwarven culture that are even more ancient that somehow have things living in it. And one of those things, rock wraiths, which is rocks animated by red lyrium. They're animated by the lyrium, like a reaper is using it. And that's my point. It's like, I understand the many reservations people could have to this theory. I'm sure that there are some people who are tired because they've probably been fighting this theory for years, and here I am, sounding like a self-important jackass, bringing up this thing that they've shot down 1,000,000 times before. And it's like, well, I get that. But this thing has been living rent-free in my head, and the fact that I'm not the only one who keeps bringing it up means that there might be more here. And if you're somebody who's like, finally, somebody who agrees with me on my theory, here's my extra notes, I'd appreciate that, but I want to reserve judgment. Because just because you and I agreed that Mass Effect is a prequel to Dragon Age, or is somehow connected to Dragon Age, that doesn't mean that we fully agree, and I'm still going to have to scrutinize your ideas. I'm not just going to blindly accept everything. I have to do my own research. But I wanted to bring this up because I don't think it's ever going to be brought back up in Dragon Age. And I don't think any Mass Effect game can really happen after Mass Effect 3. I know Andromeda did, but Andromeda intentionally did all it could to kind of remove itself from the setting. So Andromeda may have a lot to do with Mass Effect, but has no influence on this theory. No influence on specifically what I'm saying here. And so since Andromeda has no effect on specifically what I'm discussing here, golden. It can exist on its own. We can debate whether Andromeda is a good game another time, but right now, for the sake of this, it has nothing to do with my theory. And there's nothing in it that has anything to do with my theory. So we're golden. It's excellent that way. In fact, if anybody can use Andromeda to bring up theoretical technology that could further prove my point, I'd be down for it. But only because I don't really care about Andromeda, and I'm really not going to give it too much credence, because it happens not connected to this idea. But if it agrees with me, that would be more evidence to me that the writers had intended it this way. That the reason the first Mass Effect 3 ending was so crap was because they were trying to unwrite themselves out of a corner. Like, we need a satisfying ending to the sci-fi epic that still leads to Dragon Age, and they couldn't think of one. And they tried doing their usual shenanigans with that, and it didn't work. They thought they could get away with the generic ending Tron 3000, and I don't think it worked for them. Because they didn't want to outright say that it leads to Dragon Age. Because I think if they outright said it led to Dragon Age, it would tip the iceberg of the ongoing debate at that point in time. Because I still think even at that time it was actively being debated whether they were connected. They didn't want to outright confirm for the people who are huge sci-fi nerds and didn't want any fantasy in their sci-fi, or didn't want to feel like their struggles were in vain, because the Darkspawn being an extension of the Reapers is, in a sense, unsatisfying to most people. Because it's like, dude, I killed them all. There can't be Darkspawn, I killed all the Reapers. Of course there's one left buried in the earth, what a cop-out. And it's like, no, I'm somebody who's like, good, I killed all the ones out there. Now I get to make a more personal attack on just this one really damaged one, and just wipe them the frick out. I also think that if you think about Morgan's child as the... How do I put this? Basically, you took the CPU of a computer and its core programming. Actually, you took the CPU of a computer, and you moved it into a place without the same core programming. So you took your hard drive out, you took your CPU out, and you removed it from the existing operating system, and you're reintroducing the same information and the same processing power to an entirely new operating system, namely a mostly human vessel instead of a mostly technological one. And I think Kieran is more interesting because of that. You're taking a Reaper that was synthetic life, trying to mimic organic life for the sake of fusion, and now putting them in an organic body with just the faintest memories of who they were. And letting them live a new life. So I think it adds dimensions to Kieran to think of this theory. Anyway, that's the generalities, the overview of my Mass Effect as a prequel to Dragon Age theory. I hope you guys enjoyed it.